I'm here with Steph Walker. Hello, Steph.
Hi, Andy. Really good to be here.
Great. So, we are talking about TLG, which is nice. You put it in your name at the bottom. Just give us a brief overview. What is it, and what is it you're actually up to?
Oh, TLG, it stands for Transforming Lives for Good, which is why I stick to the acronym a lot, the three letters. But it does what it says on the tin. It's a national children's charity. And to sum us up in a nutshell, we help about 5,000 children every year, kids who are struggling with food insecurity and also with emotional distress in the middle of the mental health crisis. And we do all that through working with churches. And I think probably the most revealing thing I can say is we're about 100,000 meals a year for kids
Wow.
and 10,000 one-to-one coaching sessions in school for kids a year, all through local churches.
So, really, is it mostly through the education system? Is that where you do a lot of your work in schools? Is that sort of predominantly it?
Yeah, well, it depends. We have those two programs. And so the early intervention program supporting kids with emotional trauma and distress, that's all in schools. So we work in about 156, I think it is, primary schools and less secondary schools, maybe about 54-ish secondary schools across the country. And it's really a massive need that schools are saying, but we're there for the kids,
Mm.
really. It's helping the schools because there's so much disruption in the
Mm.
classroom. They haven't got the resources, the teacher time that they need. But we can come in. We've got 25 years of expertise in trauma-informed care for kids.
Wow.
And we will go in and we'll train members of the local church congregation up to be trauma-informed coaches. And we match each coach with one child in the school who's really struggling with the school day, who can't really cope
Mm.
because of all the background circumstances in their lives. And that coach will go in for an hour a week, but for a whole year in the school to see that child, because trauma is just not a quick fix.
No.
And this is quite revolutionary. Schools don't have resource like this, certainly not long-term resource. If they have any resource, it tends to last about 6 weeks. And in that time, a traumatized child is not going to form trust, is not going to open up about some of the situations that they're in. And so it's quite startling approach, which is why it's so welcomed with schools. It has quite startling results for the kids and for the schools as well. So it's exciting work to be involved with.
We're living in a next day. I mean, I can go on Amazon, I can get a Morrison's order in parts of the country. You can get same day if you're close enough. We're in that mentality of, I want food now. Fast food, if it's taking more than 5 minutes, I mean, come on, what's taking you? They're
Yeah.
preparing a hot meal. We're in that idea, but when it comes to people,
Yeah.
although we want things fast, we can't be changed fast. I had 18 months of PTSD CBT. It's not for child trauma. It's not a rapid process,
No, it's
and
not.
most of those early sessions was me trusting the person who they're a qualified
Yes.
professional. They got certificates, diplomas, and everything. They're working in an NHS building. Yeah, but who are you? Can I
Yeah.
trust you? It's not immediate, is it?
Absolutely. That's it in a nutshell. I think it's relationships um, that bring healing. Until you're in a relationship that feels safe and that you can really trust, you can't trust that you can have. We find this with our coaches actually, that over the entire year, they might build up a rapport with the child very, very quickly. And the child starts coming into school on the days that they're going to see their coach. And they're having loads of fun and they'll play the games and they'll do lots of fun activities and they want to be there, but they're still not opening up.
Mm.
And it can take 9 months or more for the opening up. They like their coach, they're having fun, they want to be with them, but the trust is a
Yeah.
long term. It comes through consistency, doesn't it? And being there consistently for somebody and showing that you care for them, that you're interested in them, that you're hearing them, that they are seen. And that just takes time.
It really, really does. And I think, I mean, I worked in schools in children's ministry in the past, and everyone's after the 6 week, the 12-week program. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's maybe a need for that sometimes, immediate intervention and all the rest of it. But actually, most of us, we want long-term relationships and stuff that we can trust. And we don't want the one-time done deal, off you go, because
No.
it leaves us a little bit, I suppose, even perhaps more raw than we were in the first place.
Yeah, very much so. So I think the reason that we work with churches is because we realise that eventually the programme's going to end, but the child and usually their family are in the middle of a traumatic situation.
Hmm.
They're all really struggling, and what they need is their local community to
Yeah.
walk alongside them long term and do life and walk long term. And we think that is really, really important. And that's why we work with churches, because they're embedded in communities all over, every community, and they're there long term to walk beyond not just providing the acute specialism in the school environment, but after that, to walk long term with the family.
Which is which is really important. That's the mentoring stuff. The 100,000 meals. So you're saying
Yeah,
that's not all school then?
no, that's all out of school actually.
Okay.
And that's really to reach children in the holidays when the free school meals have stopped and where things are getting very acute for families that are living in poverty. So that's because, again, churches are well set up. They do food well and easily. They've got big buildings with kitchens, big
Yeah.
spaces they can invite people into. And they've got a heart to go and love your neighbour, isn't
Yeah.
it? So they want to show some love and commitment to their communities. So we hope that our programmes are really enabling church to do what church wants to do, their mission, go out and connect to your local community, make a real difference, meet real need,
Hmm.
and walk long term with your community and show that love that you want to show. So it's powerful stuff. Simple, but powerful.
But I think that the most powerful things usually are the things with the least moving parts, because the more parts you have in it, the more bureaucracy you then have to manage it. I remember being in an interview for a church job once, and they says, "Oh, how do you feel about safeguarding?" Well, it's kind of important. It's the law. Well, how would you split? Would you safeguard more the adults you're working with or the children? And I don't know if I know they like the response we got the job. And I said, look, safeguarding is one of those things that as a church we are legally bound to do, but it's not what we should be doing. It's the beginning of what we should be doing. And if we're only relying upon safeguarding to do it, we're in a much bigger mess because it can't actually protect children day to day. Yes, we can prevent stuff coming in. That's it. So I would say, actually, we got the job, but I said, look, I think when it comes to safeguarding, we need to safeguard the adults more than the children, because if the adults are safe and we feel safe with the adults, the children will automatically be protected better. And if we took everything at the children, we're not looking at the adults, well, that's where the problems begin.
Yeah.
So they seem to like the answer. I says I'd do 60-40 split. I mean, I wouldn't split it, but if they were pushing me, okay, 60-40 split, more for the adults than the children, because we should be looking after the children. But if we haven't got adults who feel safe, we don't have
Yes.
volunteers. And
Yeah.
I would actually look after them. And if they're looked after, the children will then, by extension, be cared for better. That was my
Yeah.
thought years
And I
ago.
think safe spaces are key for
Mm,
anybody. And that's what's going to form lasting relationships that really change your life. If you don't feel safe in an environment, and so many of us have areas of our life where we're feeling fearful and insecure, and we're lacking a consistently safe, warm,
mm,
welcoming environment
yeah.
to come into where we're accepted and not judged, and where there's support and kindness. So many of the kids that we speak to, one of them did a quote and it really got to me. And she said, I've learned about kindness in my coaching sessions.
Wow.
And I was so moved by that because she had to learn about kindness and what kindness was and how transformative it is for her and her relationships and the fact that she hadn't really experienced it before.
Which,
We can
wow,
do better for the kids out there.
isn't that the case? I mean, you're saying 100,000 meals. Is that across the UK or is that England? How far across do you go?
Oh, well, it's all across the UK. So we work with 200, well over 200 churches, and that number is increasing all the time. So that's 200 communities and 200 basis of a legacy in that community for
Yeah.
children and families to come. So it's good news, I think. And I think there's such a lot of bad news in the press about the church, actually. And I want to say, gosh, there's such a lot of good going on consistently at a large scale that's really relevant and really important, that's coming through churches working for social action projects in their own communities. Listen to this good news.
I've forgotten the data point, but it was about the amount of, I think it was like money or people. I've forgotten how they worked it out. It was a government thing a few years back, but how much the Christian church in the UK does in the charitable sector. And when they actually stated it, you're thinking, I've forgotten. It was a massively high percentage, more than anybody else by a country mile. And I'm thinking, well, that's really encouraging. I mean, it's
It
as it
is.
should be.
Yeah.
That's kind of the
Yeah.
heart of the gospel, surely, is to
Yeah.
reaching in the needy.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
pure religion, isn't it? It isn't just about not being polluted by the world, but actually being in the world and actually looking after the people who can't necessarily care for themselves. It's that bit we sort of
Yes.
miss out of,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not religious. Well, actually, God thinks religion's good in this context, and that bit is actually looking after those people who can't feed themselves.
Yeah. And I think that community is inbuilt with us. We're meant to have meaningful, strong communities and relationships around us. And I think when we don't in our family life, in our personal life, when we're isolated, when we're struggling on our own, that's when a lot of the emotional well-being issues kick in. And receiving that again and experiencing that again can be life-changing.
I want to go back in time in a minute, but you've mentioned the mental health crisis. I mean, the fact that children early on in secondary school, even late primary, are now considering suicide because they have no hope for the future, that should
Oh,
be a massive wake-up call for the church in particular, because we are the one group of people who actually have an answer for hopelessness, because his name is Jesus Christ and he is hope.
yes.
But what are your perspectives on the mental health crisis? I mean, what's your, I suppose, your conclusion on the picture that you see?
Well, it's such a big scale at the moment. It's off the scale. So NHS England is saying that 1 in 5 children and young people in England are have a mental health condition. 1 in 5. So it's extraordinary, really. I think the Guardian summed it up best for me when they said that there were 500 referrals of children every single day just in England for mental health services.
Wow.
So it's really at crisis level. And what we see in our coaching sessions for early intervention, which is our program in the schools, what we see is a whole raft, everything under the sun of pressures that are increasing the stress and anxiety, fear, worry for children in school situations. So it could be the age-old situation of bullying. It could be that they're a carer for their little sister, their mum. They have all the pressures of the world, the weight of the world on their shoulders. It could be that they have very disruptive, dysfunctional family situations. It could be as bad as trauma within the home, violence within the home, drug abuse within the home, and all the fear and uncertainty that goes with all those things. Poverty. There's just so many situations, Andy, and we haven't even touched on social media. And I think there's so many stats now about these sorts of traumatic incidents. They're termed together as ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and there's loads of research on them. And it shows that these experiences, for children particularly, when they're just starting to form their stress responses in life, if you have a traumatic experience like those, it can affect you for life. It affects your cognitive and your physical and your emotional development for the rest of your life. So statistically, these kids, as they go to secondary school, having had some trauma in early life, they're much more likely to be, like multiple times more likely to be binge drinking and smoking and having underage sex and being on drugs and going into prison. And the stats are stacked against them. And later on in life, you've got so many more chances of having heart disease and cancer and major health issues and emotional issues, depression, anxiety. So it can affect you for life. And we feel that the answer is in relationship, is in trusting relationships, which can open up hope again. And it's very tried and tested that these protective relationships, as they call, for children who've had adverse childhood experiences in their life, can be transformative. And that's what we do with early intervention. We go in and we seek to form a safe environment where the child is heard. These kids, because they're so frightened and they are rebelling in the classroom and they cannot cope with the environment,
Mm.
and they're full of anger. Their lack of self-worth is incredible, and they feel terribly alone, and they feel shame, and they spend a lot of time covering up their personal situations. So to have somebody who's suddenly coming in and seeing you for who you are, who
Mm.
sees the good in you,
Mm.
where everyone else is just seeing your bad behavior, who sees the worth and the gold and the potential in you, who's championing that in you to others, who's showing you that you do have hope, you do have a future, and you can make better choices in the midst of what you're doing. You can't change a situation, but you can react
Mm.
differently, and that will help you in your outcome. And that there's hope, and it's worth investing in yourself, because with support, you can make up ground
Mm.
and you can reach your potential. It changes lives. And some of the stats, I think the most impactful stat we've got for early intervention is that 60% of coached children are less likely to be excluded from the school after coaching. And that's incredible for this profile of child. And
Mm.
it's a real turnaround for the school as well. There was a big report from the government recently, and they were saying that these really little kids in school, you were saying, year one and below, so they're 5 and 6 or below, and there's 6,800 exclusions at that level just in an autumn term last year. It's incredible, the scale of dysregulation and trauma and anxiety and not being able to cope.
Mm.
And there's multifactorial reasons for it, and we've touched on just some of them. But
Yeah.
the answer seems to be relational, and building relationships and being heard and talking and expressing and opening up finally.
That being heard, though, I mean, that's it's so important for older folk, and I think opposite ends of the age spectrums, really, the ability to have a conversation with somebody who's willing to not say anything, just to listen to you,
Yes.
can be one of the most life transforming things. Because if you never feel heard, I used to work in inner city Wolverhampton in a voluntary youth thing, and some of the kids, they were chucked out on a Friday night because, to be honest, the mum was a prostitute and she wanted the house, so they'd be
Mm,
kicked out. They only came to our youth group because we were warm and it was cold.
yeah. Yeah.
That's why they came to the door.
Yeah.
That's where we're meeting these kids.
Yeah.
And some of the local folk, then, they knew these kids, and they were in such a mess because they weren't wanted in the house because they were in the way because of what the mum was doing.
Yeah.
That's one of those traumas. That's
Yeah.
going to be like that's going to be with them for life,
Yeah.
because the one person that's supposed to shield and care for them is the one person that's
Yeah.
saying, "Get out, you're in my way."
Yeah.
It's and we've got, there's such pressure for two-parent families who still can't have enough money, working all the hours they can.
Yeah.
This is becoming normalized now. Universal credits isn't enough. Rent's gone.
Yeah.
All these external pressures,
Yeah.
and people forget about the children at the bottom who are
Yeah.
just being squished, pushed, chucked out to school. School will fix it. Well, school can't. School's supposed to educate.
Yeah.
They're not set up to help with emotional crises because that's not what they're trained to do in the first place. They're compassionate people, of course, but
Yeah.
you can't care for all that, because this is, like I say, you're a year with a mentor and a child. This
Yeah.
is very intensive.
Yes, it is very intensive, and teachers generally have a huge heart for these kids, but they've got 35 kids in the class.
Exactly.
They can't take them out and give them that one-to-one time that they would so need. And I think, although we've got huge amounts of therapeutic resources for whatever the situation is for each child, whether it's anger or self-worth or all sorts of issues, but we've also got loads of games and fun and activities, because they're so used to shielding
Mm.
the situation and pretending it's not there and pretending they're fine and trying to just cope in the environment that they're in at school. And so whether we're building rockets or playing games or making clay jewelry or whatever the child wants to do, there's so many options that they do together. That is an activity where you can achieve something and do something,
Mm.
and where you can just, every now and again, the child can risk revealing a little something every now and again and seeing
Yeah.
how that's received. And it takes time, it takes a lot of time.
Hmm.
And then when that trust comes, the transformation is incredible. And the videos on our website, they always make me cry because that's why I know I'm doing the right job. But when you see a child's life turned around, it's just magical. And each child whose life that happens to, the ripple effects all around them for the rest of their life, of instead of destruction and spiraling down, and support services and the impact on their future spouse or family or whatever it is, for the rest of their life, the echo effect of the transformation and the healing is vast, isn't it?
Hmm.
So one child, one family at a time, seems to transform the world bit by bit, slowly by slowly, part of the picture. But it's good. There's good
It's,
happening out there.
there's a lot of good out there, but it's always the bad that screams and shouts the loudest,
Yeah,
isn't it? But there is good. There really is good, and this is good.
yeah. And but it's the bad and the screaming against the bad that motivates you to do something about it, isn't it? And I think that's why so many churches are getting involved, because they see they can make a difference in terms of food poverty and social isolation that kids are feeling, in terms of emotional health, that there's, because the crisis is in both those areas, we feel as though we've been here for 25 years getting ready for a time such as this,
Yeah.
almost, because they're the two things that really are a pinnacle of awareness and crisis for kids at the moment in the country. And that's what we've got 25 years worth of expertise in. And so the churches are hearing about the fact they can roll their sleeves out, they can make a real discernible difference here, and they're joining in more and more. It's great.
Which is really, really good. I want to come back to TLG at the end, but just let's go back in time a little bit. I mean, this is a Christian organization. I always say the same thing, but where was your faith journey? How did that begin for you as you were growing up, to the point that you thought, well, this is more than just a nice religion. Actually, this is Jesus Christ, and actually, he means something. What was your journey growing up?
Um, well, I wasn't really a Christian growing up. I went to university, came back, got married, and got married quite young, very early 20s. And there was a leaflet through the door from the local church saying, "Oh, Alpha course." This is back in the days of the very first Alpha courses, 35 years ago. And me and my hubby went, "Oh, well, that's interesting, learning about this Christianity business." And I don't know if you know about Alpha courses, but it's 10 weeks and you have loads of food, and then you listen to a talk and discuss various topics of Christianity. And I absolutely loved it. It didn't answer my questions. It gave me about 1,000 more questions. But it began a real journey of awareness for me that this God who flung the stars into space and created the mountains and all, all this amazing stuff, I'm hearing that he's interested in me. And that was amazing. Little old me in the middle of nowhere, doing nothing special, just living my normal life in the middle of it. I was learning that he had this huge love and a personal, wanted to relate to me and wanted to have a relationship with me. And that bowled me over. And that was very important. But I think what really escalated my relationship as a Christian was going through a divorce at that time. Very shortly afterwards, my husband had an affair, and you go through your world falling apart. I was young as well, and obviously there's lots of shame and you don't know what to do and all those things. And I think at that point you either reject God or you cling to God like mad, and I did the latter. And went, "Help! I need some help here, and I want to be known, and I've forgotten who I am. Who am I again?" And so having all this affirmation that I was deeply loved, deeply cared for, meant a lot for me. And the home group that formed to carry on the conversations after that Alpha course, it carried on for another, well, I'm still in it now, 30 odd years later. And it provided real family for me. And because I was living here and I was 2 hours away from my nearest relative. So I was very isolated. I didn't have a support network around me. And I felt that God really gave me a local family through the church who've cared for me, who stuck with me, who walked life with me. We've been on holidays together, we've cried together, we've celebrated together, we've done everything together for 30 years. We've learned about God together. It's been brilliant. But that's been very, very healing for me, to be given a family of people who really care long term. And also the fact that I learned through that situation and many others in life since, that God can redeem some of the worst circumstances. He can bring good out of it, and set you up on your feet and heal again where you thought you couldn't heal. And I've learned that. And I think that's why TLG resonates with me so much, because of the transformative nature from bad to good, and that God can, I've seen him do it for me. And when I hear the situations that are a million times worse that some of the families and the children have been in, and I've seen so many instances, having worked for TLG for 8 years now, where he turns that bad out for good, and where the church can be a family of continual support and encouragement and nurture for people to know that they are valued and loved. And so there's a real resonance there for my personal story. And I've always known about the charity because I used to work with Tim Morfin, who set the charity up. So I've known Tim for 28 years or something, because we used to work for not for TLG, another 3 letters, GSK, the blue chip pharma company. We were both working for GSK, and we vaguely knew of each other at work. And Tim was doing youth work outside of his GSK work in inner city Bradford through his church. And he was coming in very, very sort of agitated, saying there's a big problem, nationwide big problem for kids, and they're spiraling down and no one's championing them, and we need to be doing something. And I think church should be part of the solution, and I'm trying to work out what that will look like. And eventually he went 4 days a week at GSK and started piloting this little project thing that he had. And then it grew, and eventually he did that big stepping into the unknown and leaving the regular salary bit and stepping out in faith. And that's where TLG grew, just this tiny, tiny passion that things should be different. And this wasn't God's heart for kids and families, and that we should be doing something and we can do something. And so I've seen that grow over the years, from just being Bradford to now being nationwide, to being, 200 odd churches, more joining all the time, and being so relevant to the current situation and meeting real need. So it's great.
That you got to see this, I suppose, from afar as it began from its infancy. What got you to working for them now?
Well, I had some time off when I had the kids. It was a great blessing, really, because I got made redundant after 19 years at GSK. And they were moving all the coaches and trainers to London, which was no good for me. So I had 4 years off being a mum with the redundancy. and then Tim phoned me up and said, don't suppose you fancy looking at the charity, dude, helping out here. It's such a different place to work compared to sort of high industry. It's lots of different frustrations. You've never got enough resource, you've never got enough money, you've got such an awareness of the need, and you're only tackling this much and the problem is this big. And so many different aspects to it. But at the same time, I can be wholly me. At work, it's a Christian charity, and we pray for the kids all the time and what we're doing. And everyone is so passionate and feels that they have been brought here for this time to do some good in this way. And so everyone's got a real passion, and that's a great environment to work in.
And so now you get to work for TLG, having watched it from its infancy. So what do you do specifically? What's your week like normally?
Oh, well, I'm the business partnerships manager. So I talk to businesses, tiny ones and great big ones, and show them how they can join in for kids. So we've got a couple of initiatives for businesses to join in. It doesn't matter how big you are. It's about doing some good through your business, answering this big issue for kids right now. and having some big national impact as well and being part of that. I run those two business initiatives. And there's also an online Christian business network that we run as well. And we've found that Christians in business are often, they feel as though they've got their heads above the parapet, really trying to do life and work and business differently and really get some good values and integrity going through how they run their businesses. And it's quite a tough place to be, and that they want to connect and they want to be supported and they want to do business with others in similar ilk. So we run a network of 4 times a year. It's just an hour over lunch online. And any Christian in business can join in, can hear a speaker speak, and have 2 opportunities to network. You'll obviously hear stories from the charity as well, because we want to let people know what's going on. So it's been great, a real community drawing together of people who are supporting, who have vision, who have similar hearts, and who want to really do good. And if you're doing good at the top of the business or anywhere within a business, it's a real echo to your colleagues, isn't it? Of you can do life in a peaceful way, your integrity can shine out, you can listen and hear your colleagues. It's a great echo to those around you, I think, in business. That's where most people are during the day, isn't it?
I would say most people are not sat at home in the garden with a barbecue and a beer. That's not most people's day to day, is it?
No. So getting out there. So we do that. So that's my little bit of TLG. But there's loads of other ways that people are joining in. But that's just a little bit that I do.
But that comes back to the relationships that you were talking about that was important to you. You go through the trauma of a divorce, and then you've got relationships that are there to carry you through,
Yeah.
and you're still there, which is fab. And that's exactly what you're doing with the children. So I love how I always like to draw this little analogy, but just to draw it out really easily, not analogy, it's reality, but the relationships are important, then become important in different ways. So whereas it's important for you back then, you're now seeing a similar thing for children through the
Yes.
work of TG and also the businesses as well, because it's a scary place.
Yeah, it's tough out there running businesses. It's a really tough place to be right now. So support. Everyone wants to connect with others who are in the same boat and understand the pressures. And when you can get some input and some top tips and some encouragement while you're at it. So yeah, we hope that's been a good service for people. People can join in with that. So just go onto our website and do a / and put the letters the Online Christian Business Network, OCBN. I'm not very good with letters, am I?
No,
So yeah,
it's
just
fine.
join in, sign up to the next one. It'd be great to see you. Yeah.
Fab. If people want to get involved with TLG, I mean, you've got, from what I've been making notes of, you've got people that can help with meals, so that's churches generally,
Oh yeah.
or people within a church who think, "Do you know what, we could actually do that. We got a kitchen, it's empty 4 days a week.
Yes.
Hey, we can do that." You've got
Yeah.
people who can join the mentor stuff, I'm guessing
Yeah.
through a church as well. So
Yes.
that's 2 plus the businesses. So that's 3 that I picked up on that you're doing. There's probably more as well. But how
Yeah.
do people connect with you if they're thinking, well, I'm a Christian business. How do I'm okay? We've got the website thing, but how do people reconnect you, especially on the meals and the mentoring?
Go just to make it simple. I think I'd point everyone to the website initially and then look at each facet that you're interested in. So, for instance, the website is www.tlg.org.uk. Now, you might be interested in equipping yourself for emotional support of the people around you. In fact, at TLG, we're on a mission to equip the church to serve their communities better. And so if you are interested in some training, we've got 3 training sessions that we run really regularly online called Emotional First Aid Training. And it's a great hour and a half investment in yourself, really, for the people around you who may be experiencing some emotional distress. We're experts in this with 25 years of trauma-informed support. So we can give you a safe place to start helping to walk alongside somebody at work, somebody at the bus stop, somebody in the park, somebody at church, somebody, your neighbours, wherever you're coming across people in distress, which you will be
Mm.
in this current environment, then you need to know what's going to be helpful and how you can start that journey of walking alongside them in life. So join up for our EFA, Emotional First Aid training. You'll find that on the website. So that's one thing you could do to join in. You're right, you might want to see how your church can get involved. And you just look for the church joining in section on the website, and you'll get loads of information there. Show your interest, we'll send you some more information. You might want to be a coach for early intervention. You might want to run Make Lunch. You might want a TLG speaker to come and talk at your church, maybe as well. You might want a copy of the book of the TLG story. Here it is. That's very inspiring read. So there's loads of ways you can join in. And of course, if you want to support the work, we're desperately in need of support. We want to reach more kids, and the scale of the problem is so big. So if you want to donate, obviously there's a big red donate button. You can, even better for us is if you think you could give a tiny little bit, but regularly, become one of our hope givers, and support the charity in that way as well. So whatever your area of interest, get on the website and find out more about it and get involved.
tlg.org.uk. Steph, thank you for just sharing some of your own story. And I love seeing how God interweaves our pasts, redeems it, which is the point you made, into what
Yeah,
we're doing now so frequently. And it's my pleasure and delight to do these interviews with so many people, because it's what I get to see. So it's just delightful to think relationships important. TLG, children, relationships. Oh, look at what God's done. He's brought
yeah,
your past, the dark stuff, the difficult stuff,
yeah,
redeemed that, and now that becomes a passion and a driver in a really good
yeah,
way. And I love that. And it doesn't matter who I'm talking to, from a massive range. I mean, it's like 110 interviews of these we've done, and it's a delight to see how God, regardless of the ministry area, the background, the past, the damage, the darkness, there's a redemptive story of Christ that then liberates that person to working for God in an area where all that stuff that you think, I don't want to go through that, actually God can use all that, and it's
yeah,
never ever wasted. As painful as it might be, God then uses it,
yeah,
and I love that.
yes, yeah. He brings good out of it, you see.
He does always.
Yeah,
tlg.org.uk. Thank you, Steph. Go and check it out, and maybe your church can get involved with what they're doing. Steph from TLG, thank you.
such a pleasure, Andy.